Welcome here live, wherever you are, wherever you're listening, all those involved. I welcome you. Joshua here, 86 Boxing. See the shirt representing, and I appreciate every single person that will be here live, for those that will be listening on review and replay. Special day, of course, Veterans Day. Veterans Day here in the United States of America, November 11th. Shout out to all of the veterans that are out there showing love. And I appreciate you all. Thanks to all who served. Happy Veterans Day. Shout out to my man Rodolfo Rivera Jr. holding it down. California in the building here. Appreciate you there, Rodolfo Rivera Jr. Rodolfo says, Happy Veterans Day. Appreciate you there, Rodolfo. Happy Veterans Day. I'm sending my Happy Veterans Day. Rodolfo sending his Happy Veterans Day to all of the veterans that are out there who have represented for this great country. We thank you. Shout out to all of the Marines out there as well. That birthday was just yesterday. Semper Fi. Semper Fidelis for those that don't know. Semper Fi to all the Marines out there. We just celebrated the Marine Corps' 250th birthday just yesterday. And it was, hey, I think of BD, of course, 250. Think about that. 250 years. That's amazing in any way when you think about it. 250 years of anything, but hey, we're here to celebrate and represent for it. Shout out to my man, Random Acoustic Thoughts in the building. Appreciate you there, buddy. Folks, if you haven't checked out Random Acoustic Thoughts, you want to do that right now. Go like, go subscribe, go tune in and check out the content because we're talking boxing history. And when you think about YouTube, those covering the great sport, those covering boxing history at its finest, hey, look no further than Random Acoustic Thoughts right there, my buddy right there. And we're going to be setting up something soon there, Random. So I'm going to be reaching out. I have a few bits of content that was provided, and we will be connecting here soon, Random. We have to give the people what they want. So shout out to TFB who provided some great potential fantasy matchups that we could cover there, Random. And you know, when we do that, it's usually pretty good. And I always enjoy them. So look forward to it, buddy. And Random is also working on a book, folks. Sam Langford, the great Boston bone crusher, Sam Langford, Canada's own. So Random is working on that, covering the early career of Sam Langford. So we're very much looking forward to that as well when it ultimately comes about. So Random, we thank you. We will be there. We will be waiting. So appreciate everyone who's tuning in. We're talking about historic fighters from the military in the sport of boxing. So that's what the intent of today is. And if you know me, then you know we talk about those that go way back deeper in the sport. So we're talking even those that served in the military from the early 1900s. You know, we could even go back to the 1800s. Just think about it. And when we're talking about the Marine Corps being 250 years old, of course, we're going to talk about some Marines that were in the mix there as well. The Fighting Marines. I want to shout out to the Fighting Marine currently representing the face of Marine Corps boxing, none other than Captain Stephanie Simon holding it down, Pullman's Gym, California. So big shout out to Stephanie Simon. Let's give her a round of applause because she's holding it down. Very active and fighting and representing in the sport, and she is building her history right now. She's already done it on the amateur side. She's doing it in the Marine Corps, and she'll continue to do so. So we appreciate everyone who shows love to such. And hey, we're going to shout out the rest of these great Marines, Armymen, infantrymen, airmen, airwomen, Army women, whatever you want to name it. We're going to shout out and show love to all of them. And we're even going to take it back, like I said, further to the old days of boxing there. But appreciate everyone in the mix. Hey, shout out there to you, Pinoy Sokolov. Hey, Joseph. Hey, appreciate you there, Joseph. It says, oh, wow, you have hey, I've had one for a good little bit there, Joseph. I've had it. Mainly talking boxing history there, Joseph. But I appreciate you dropping by, buddy. But yeah, boxing history mainly. So in the mix here, Joseph. So thank you for dropping by, buddy. Hey, be sure to go check him out, folks. Joseph, he's tied in, especially if you want to know about the great Filipino boxers out there doing their thing. Joel Casimiro, you name it. Hit up Joseph. He has a channel, so check him out there, folks. Shout out to Blake Gallimore. Blake, appreciate you dropping by in the building. Blake says, happy Veterans Day to all who served and are still serving. Salute to that. Big shout out to that right there for sure. Thank you, Blake. Hey, I ditto that. So appreciate you dropping by, Blake. Always great to have you in. We're talking some of these military vets, some who are active, of course, who are still doing their thing, but mainly some of these military veterans who are boxing in this sport and making a name for themselves. We'll probably go about an hour just to give you all a little taste, about an hour where we're going to be talking boxing history. Shout out to Dan the Man. Appreciate you there, Dan the Man. Always in here showing love. Thank you, Dan. We're going to be talking boxing history, Dan, and I know you're an aficionado, so we want to definitely have you in the mix. So thank you there, buddy. Anthony Baca. Hey, salute there, Anthony. Appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. Thanks for joining us. I don't remember you being here before, but hey, we appreciate you. We want you here. We're talking veterans. We're talking us doing our thing there in the military world. It's okay. Hey, happy birthday to you there. It's okay. Thank you for dropping in, buddy. Hey, we're here. We're going to be showing love to the veterans out there, making a name for themselves in the sport of boxing from a historic perspective, those who served in the military, etc. Jack Dempsey did redeem his rep. Shout out there to you, Greek, a.k.a. my man Joshua, my fellow Joshua there. Thank you for dropping by there. He did redeem himself. Excuse me, he did. You know the story of Jack Dempsey, folks. Of course, some have labeled him a draft dodger, things of that nature. He did not serve actively there in the midst of World War I, but he did do his thing there in World War II, throwing in some support for the military in service. Of course, this was him later in years, but that being said, hey, he was there showing some love there. But certainly one of the big things that came about was him taking on George Carpentier, a military hero right there representing France. When I was thinking about this from a Veterans Day perspective, I was also going to include some of the other countries. And you know what? Hey, we can talk about them because there have been some great military personnel from other countries who've graced us in this sport. So George Carpentier is one of those. So he came up, the parallels between him and Dempsey, sort of the differences there. So he is someone, I was actually going to include Carpentier on the actual cover. I had him. I had also Tom Sharkey, the fighting sailor representing Dundalk, Ireland, where he was initially born there. Fighting sailor, but I ended up just including sort of the American fighters that were there. But hey, we're going to talk about them all. Hey, cheers there. I don't know. Hey, appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. Thomas Vega. Hey, appreciate you as well, Thomas Vega. Thank you for dropping by here, buddy. Hey, Anthony, you're new. Hey, new. Welcome to the team. Welcome aboard there, buddy. We are here. We're going to be talking boxing history. Hopefully you're a fan of boxing history because that's what we typically jump into and what we typically cover there, boxing history. So thank you. Blake had to drop in and give a salute to the one and only Harry Greb, honorably served his country in the Navy while still going 45-0 in 1990. Amazing stuff right there. And if you don't know Harry Greb, in general, arguably the greatest boxer, the greatest resume in the sport, former world middleweight champion, could have been middleweight champion long before he was middleweight champion, could have been light heavyweight champion of the world, could have been heavyweight champion of the world, you name it, Harry Greb. So shout out to him. Navy, the Marine Corps is a branch of the Navy. So I got love right there, just representing that in itself right there, because representing the Marine Corps, I am representing the Navy. So salute there to all the midshipmen, etc., that are a part of the Navy. They do their thing. Udis, so hey, appreciate you there. Udis dropped by, says salute. Thank you for dropping in, buddy. Always great to have you in the mix as well. Great questions, good talk. We can do it. We can get her done for sure. We can get her done there, Udis. We're gonna talk more boxing history. Cheers there to you, Dan. Jim Driscoll, the Welsh who was Irish, was in a lot of fights in World War III. Oh, good stuff there, Dan. Jim Driscoll, hell of a fighter right there. Tough guy as well. Tough guy, Jim Driscoll. So that's a good shout out right there. I didn't know he had served there. You said World War III, maybe one. So Driscoll, would the time frame you fight would have been more than one World War I time frame, right? Somewhere in there, Dan. Oh yeah, I see you put it there. All good there, buddy. So good stuff. Anthony said, Boxy said, sound like the Magic E. Oh, okay. Boxy. All right. I'll see if I can get that right. Hey, and shout out to can you say my name correctly? All right, I'm gonna get it right here. Ryan Esquivel. Orion Esquivel. That's what I'm going to say. Orion Esquivel. Am I right there, Orion? Orion Esquivel. Appreciate you dropping in, Orion. Hey, thanks for showing some love here in this world of boxing history. Thank you there, buddy. Let's see here. And Anthony mentions all the letters. Okay, I got you. Or kind of E-like as far as like Becca or Bixa, Beha. Behe, something like that right there, Anthony. So let me know if I got that right, Orion. Dan mentions Michael Dowd, one of the most underrated great welterweights and middleweight champion, only American to fight on the front lines in World War I. That's pretty amazing right there. Mike O'Dowd, matter of fact, didn't he fight Harry Greb? They fought once, and I know Greb wants to get in there with him again. I think if I'm not mistaken, O'Dowd has a win over Greb right there, Dan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Mike O'Dowd, damn good fighter there for sure. So good for showing love right there. And on the front lines of World War I was pretty crazy. I've done some studying on World War I as far as different YouTube videos. I've read some different things, articles, probably should dive into some books as well in relation to such. But man, there were a lot of lives lost in that war. So salute to all those who served, regardless of country or whatnot. I mean, it's just crazy, and a lot of young individuals. War is a young man's sport, as they say, young man and woman's sport. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of young individuals end up going to war, and they're usually out there on the front lines. Not that it is solely them, but there are a lot of young ones there. I think about myself. I did serve in Iraq, and I was 19 in Iraq, turned 20 while I was over there. And that pretty much the going age for a lot of these youngsters you see on the front line of what's going on in these different areas where as it relates to war. So, it's an unfortunate thing that is a part of war there, but it is a young person's fight, I guess, out there on the front lines, you could say. Beat Gibbons. Oh, Mike. Beat Gibbons. And that's saying something there. Mike Gibbons. Shout out to the as it relates to Mike Gibbons, his great nephew who just wrote a book on the St. Paul Phantom there, Mike Gibbons. Or at least I don't think it's out yet. He did an early release. I saw this on Instagram. I want to definitely check that out. I'd love to get him on the channel. May happen at some point. But he has a living ancestor, grandson of Tommy Gibbons, of course, nephew of, so I guess not great nephew, so just nephew in general, nephew of Mike Gibbons. So, hey, just think about that. Mike O'Dowd, Mike Gibbons, electric, one of the pure technical boxers that is out there. We do have him on film, some footage of him, as a matter of fact. I actually have a poll on the channel that speaks to Mike Gibbons a little bit, or at least he's featured in a poll, but it's like 4 middleweights there. But Mike Gibbons, very, very underrated fighter. I want to do something on him specifically on the channel because, hey, that's right up my alley as far as the eras I love to cover. And he is no doubt one of the greats who is not as mentioned as he probably should be, given what he was able to accomplish in the sport. The Greek here says Greb was fighting almost anyone, regardless of color. No doubt about it there. No doubt about it. Greb, hey, he would step in there. As a matter of fact, the first to give that shot to Tiger Flowers. Tiger Flowers won the first black world middleweight champion. He won that title from Harry Greb. Of course, they fought twice there with Harry Greb or Tiger Flowers getting the nod. And Harry Greb, even in the aftermath of the contest, certainly that first contest, he was there by Tiger Flowers' side to make sure nobody messed with him. Greb hey, he accepted the fact that he lost, and he wasn't going to allow any shenanigans, if you know what I'm saying. Anthony mentioned say the sound of the sound Baksa solely. Bagza. Could be Bagza. We're gonna get that right before this show's over here, Anthony. We're gonna get it right for sure. Appreciate you dropping in there, buddy. But hey, we're talking military boxers, and there have been many of them. Some of them already have some sort of I guess you can call these like stat sheets or whatever that are made up on them that kind of detail some of these boxers. So I'll start with different boxers. Really no particular order, but it just so happens, hey, Carmen Basilio, the great Carmen Basilio, just did a live on him the other day, as a matter of fact. You look at some of the people that he went up against. Lou Jenkins, another one I want to mention. I don't have one of these sheets for Lou Jenkins, but he's certainly worth mentioning. Now, Lou Jenkins serves in the Army, tough fighter. I just so happened to mention him in a shorts video earlier as well. And Lou Jenkins, former champion, I think it was it lightweight champion or 140-pound championship? One of the two, lightweight or the super lightweight. But I think it was lightweight championship. But Lou Jenkins, hell of a fighter there. Record, you look at his record up and down. I was mentioning him in that shorts video because of the fact that, you know, sometimes losses can be looked at in a particular way, but I say, and I'll repeat, all wins and losses are not created equal. That being said, there have been many greats who have lost, but that did not define their career. So if you just so happen to take a loss, that doesn't make you any less of a fighter. We look at it on a fight-to-fight basis, and it's about who you're in the ring with. So that's ultimately what's matter. We can drum up a fancy record and call it whatever you may, but at the end of the day, what we're going to remember is what you put out in that ring, who you went up against, your impact on the sport in that regard. So shout out to all those that are stepping in the ring and entertaining us. You can't get enough of it, essentially. Danny Nardico. Oh, yeah, I know Nardico. Don't know a ton about him, but I know of him, certainly name-wise. So he served in the military there, Dan. What more can you share there? What more can you share there on Danny Nardico? I saw Lou's grave at Arlington. Oh, awesome there, Joshua. That's pretty amazing. You know, I haven't been over there, even though I live in this area. I'm in Washington, D.C., for those that don't know, and I pass by Arlington Cemetery all of the time. I was going to participate in one of the events or the lead ups where you lay wreaths on the different headstones or gravestones. I haven't participated in that yet. Maybe one of these years for sure. But dang, that's pretty amazing there. So Lou is out there in Arlington. I didn't know he was out there in Arlington. So Lou Jenkins, folks, buried out there in Arlington Cemetery, prestigious cemetery, if you don't know, right there in Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, it's pretty much right beside D.C., right on the cusp of D.C. right there. Matter of fact, the D.C. airport is in Arlington. Most people don't know that, even though it's D.C. airport, it's in Arlington, but Arlington Cemetery is right there. So, hey, good stuff there, Greek. I haven't been over there. I know Joe Louis is out there, right? There are a number of, I would imagine, boxers that are buried there. My partner, her father is buried there. So, hey, we're representing for the veterans here today. Salute to all of them. Oh, yeah, you did mention Lewis there. Joshua got you. So, cool. Yeah, he is out there for sure. I do know that. I went there mostly for Joe Louis, but since Jenkins was there as well, awesome. So that'd be interesting, to know who else is out there. I haven't really looked into it, actually. But that is saying something. I will say that's certainly saying something right there, that those two are out there. I'd imagine there may be some others, because another name I have here, for instance, like is Barney Ross, another military person. I'll pull up his stat sheet there, resume sheet there here in a sec. But Dan mentions Lou Jenkins is one of the true one-punch KO artists. He's on Ring Magazine's Greatest Punchers. Hey, that's saying something right there. Being able to be held in that type of light. Just think about it. And this dude had a ton of fights No, it's got to be in the neighborhood, close to 200 fights, if not 200 fights there that is on his official record there, Dan. So that's saying something. Being able to be notified or be noted as a puncher going up against that level of competition that he went up against with the amount of fights that he ultimately had. So that's saying something right there, and that's big time ultimately. So shout out to Lou Jenkins. He doesn't get mentioned as often, and I don't know everything about him. I don't know a ton about him. As a matter of fact, I have to dive deeper even myself. I do know he served in the Army, as mentioned. I know he became a world champion, had a tough career, went up against a lot of tough competition, some up and downs. That being said, big time puncher. So good shout out right there, Dan or Nod. Thank you. Cheers to William Charles Snyder says, I'm jealous of all the people that never come across your stream. Hey, cheers there, William. No, appreciate it there, buddy. Hey, thank you for even dropping by. Hey, it's a matter of, hey, I appreciate all that drop in, show some love there. I think we're all boxing history fans. It can be niche in some sense. And some people, you really have to have an interest in it. And for boxing history, for some, and hey, it is history. You might go back to the 70s or something like that. 70s, 80s. That's what it is for a lot of people who were watching during that time, big time for the sport as well. But that being said, there's so many great boxers who have graced us in the past who we have footage of. We actually have pictures, footage, and a good deal of information. And hey, it's always good to show those individuals some love because they kind of fall off the radar a bit, fall by the wayside. But that being said, we have other channels out there recognizing these individuals because they made a great impact to the sport, and the sport would not be where it is or what it is without these individuals. And as I always mention, the conditions of the sport were very different back then. So these were some tough eras with super tough fighters. It's very much different than it is today. No question, the sport is a safer sport, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. It's a safer sport today. What some of these individuals went through, for them to have sort of prolonged careers, hundreds of fights even, is an amazing thing. Amazing thing. Joshua says, amazing being the big boxing fan you are. You did not take a trip to see Lewis. I know. It's crazy. Yeah. I haven't gone to too many graveyards like that. So that's one of those things, it's one of kind of the give or take. I know Joe Gans is right up the way. I was going to go up to an event for Joe Gans. Shout out to Sarah Artist, who I interviewed. She's doing work to help get a Joe Gans monument erected in Baltimore. There is one at the Madison Square Garden. I don't know how long it's been there, but it's been there for a good period. But there's one that is needed in Baltimore. So she's putting in a lot of work to make that happen. I interviewed her. They hosted an event there at Mount Aubrey Cemetery in Baltimore where Joe Gans is buried. As a matter of fact, Joe Gans and his son is buried there. I think some other members of the family lineage are there. I do need to get to some of those. I know there was this other guy who's been there, Xavier the Boxing Nerd, and he posted some stuff on the channel. But I haven't been to Arlington Cemetery in general outside of they have a Marine Corps monument that is there. I have been to that. I have been out there to that for an event or a memorial type thing. But I haven't been through the cemetery in itself. But I'd imagine I will end up going through there one of these days. Joshua, one of these days. So, yeah, we'll see if there are some others that are out there. Have to look it up. Dan mentioned Nardico fought in all the major bloody battles in the Pacific World War II. Then same in the Korean War, highly decorated United States Marine Corps. Hoorah, shout out there. Okay, Danny Nardico. Okay, good stuff there, Dan. Thanks for sharing there. I'm going to have to look up more on Nardico. I know of him from a namesake for sure. I need to look up more on Danny Nardico, and that's saying something right there, especially thinking World War II, Korea War. Wow, that's big time. Yeah, Ross is buried in Chicago. Okay, good stuff there, Joshua. So Barney Ross is buried in Chicago. Of course, one of the great boxers. And, I think about stylistically some of the great boxers just in the history of the sport that I like that we have footage on, because there are a ton we don't have footage on, but Barney Ross is one of those. He ranks up there for me. You can see that sort of gracefulness. You can see that intellect, that skill set that he had. He is definitely one of the great boxers that the sport has seen. And hey, it's certainly a pleasure to be able to have him on film there. So he's buried in Chicago. Good stuff there. Good stuff for sharing there, Joshua. Dan mentions Lou Jenkins took the title from Lou Ambers. Oh, okay, Lou Ambers. I think I have a Lou Ambers book over here from yeah, I think I do, actually. I do. I need to read that book. Lou Ambers. Okay, that's what's up right there. Mark Allen Baker, he's written a book on a lot of people, of course, but Lou Ambers, that's another one right there. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I have that here somewhere. I do need to read that. That might be next on the list. As a matter of fact, I just found this out here probably 10 minutes before this thing went live, that there's a new book on Wild Bill Muldoon, William Muldoon, aka Wild Bill. He was a wrestler, of course, and he had a major part in the sport of boxing. He was eventually over the Madison Square Garden, the athletic commission there. I guess you can say the athletic commission, but he was over the Madison Square Garden. So all of the fights that were happening there, when you think about the early 1920s, I think throughout the 20s, just in general. I don't know how long he held the position, but I think beyond that, because he might have been there actually when Braddock was there. So when Braddock was fighting. So Wild Bill Muldoon, there's a new book. I want to try to get the guy on. I have to ask. I have to find out if someone knows of him. I didn't know of him. Scott Beekman, an author by the name of Scott Beekman. He just released a book, looks like September of this year, on Wild Bill Muldoon, the great wrestler. I think he did some Greco-Roman wrestling potentially as well. But of course, boxing and wrestling has a major connection, especially back in those days. And he was also the one who trained John L. Sullivan for that bare knuckle, I guess you can say, the last world heavyweight championship bare knuckle contest between John L. Sullivan and Jake Kilrain back in 1899. Isn't that crazy? Wild Bill Muldoon, he was training Sullivan. Matter of fact, on one of the Sullivan videos I have on the channel, one about how he changed boxing, I think it's that one. There's a picture out there from it's about 4 to 5 or 6 pictures of that contest between the two. Wouldn't it be crazy if we had video? But there are about 4 to 6 pictures somewhere in there. And in at least one of the pictures for sure, you can see Bill Muldoon there ringside shouting instructions to John L. Sullivan. Isn't that crazy? He's bald-headed there. And I know it's there in one of the videos. I wish I had something here on him right now in my thing. But I wanted to mention that random, of course, that, yeah, there's a new book out there on him. So I'm going to try and check that out for sure, because, hey, he played a major part in boxing history, in wrestling history and boxing history. And not just, and I'm talking like real wrestling in terms of not the entertainment side of it, though that's real wrestling too, per se, but I'm talking, like Greco-Roman, freestyle wrestling, that stuff that we see where, hey, some really brute stuff. So he played a role in that and boxing. And, hey, John L. Sullivan tied to the world champion there, John L. Sullivan. That's some pretty amazing stuff. Greek I mentioned how Fitzgrave had to be restored since it was lost for a time. Oh, interesting. Where was that at there? His tombstone gave under the ground. Oh, wow. Okay, wow. Interesting. Cheers to Josh Taylor in the mix. Hey, thank you for dropping by there, Josh. Always great to have you in the mix as well. I know you know your boxing history. I love the boxing history, a steward of that. So appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. Yeah, glad to have you in the mix here. But that's interesting there, Joshua, what you mentioned about Fitz's gravestone. I don't know. And where is he buried, as a matter of fact? Is he here, UK? I don't know. Dan mentions Ken Norton, Leon Spinks, Mike Weaver, 3 heavyweight champions, all USMC. Yes, indeed. Mac Foster. I remember you mentioned Mac Foster a number of times there. And he came up recently as well in a discussion I was having, I think, maybe with Black Boxing, Rodolfo, talking about Mac Foster or someone else. But he did come up here recently. Or maybe he was on Bruce Gass, one of his quizzes as well, or something of that tune. Great heavyweights, yeah, USMC. Last got to be Ali in the amateur world for a lucrative career for Vietnam fighter. Okay, good stuff there. Yeah, so man, I definitely know about Norton, Spinks, and Weaver. Want to know more about Mac Foster, but he did come up recently, and I know of him from a namesake, and I know there's some footage out there of Mac as well. So that's interesting stuff there. I think I do have some stuff on Weaver, of course. Look at there, Mike Weaver, folks. Mike Weaver, former world heavyweight champion there. 41 victories, 18 losses. Hey, but here's the thing about Mike Weaver. He was one of those guys, when he was on his game, he was on. But he had those moments it wasn't his best fight. So he did rack up some losses here and there. But that being said, when he was on his game, he was on his game. He's another one got dubbed the Hercules, built like a tank, if you've seen him in other pictures. But you can even see from there, dude was built like a freaking tank. Jake LaMotta for Nardica. Okay, good stuff right there. You know what? I wonder what that covered in Raging Bull, as a matter of fact. Okay, that's good stuff there. The great Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull. Good stuff there. Thanks for sharing, Josh. Josh also mentions Barney Ross is a hero, no doubt about it. I believe he got a silver star. He received a silver star or something of that nature. A high military honor for his role in combat. I believe it was the Silver Star. I could be a little bit off with that, but I believe it was somewhere to that or something to that tune there. So, man, that's amazing right there. You think about that. One of the great boxers in the sport as well. You know, some of these boxers, they always contributed to work with the military. You think about even the likes of James J. Corbett, for instance, you know, and him doing some stuff. You think about Packy McFarland. He didn't serve in the military, but he did work with the military for sure as an instructor. Matter of fact, in the Packy McFarland video on the channel, I do mention that there towards the tail end. So you had boxing combat. You think about that, especially from a hand-to-hand perspective, a lot of that tied in. So you did have boxers contributing in a number of ways. So, hey, it's been a regular thing in the sport. Shout out to those who contributed in any way. So Joshua mentioned new book, Wow, back when wrestling was real. No doubt about it there. Joshua said, yeah, new book on Wild Bill Muldoon. He trained Sullivan for Kilrain. Yes, indeed. Josh Taylor mentioned Charles Bud Taylor is an old relative of mine. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Josh Taylor, putting it together. Charles Bud freaking Taylor, hell of a fighter right there. And he's someone I wanted to do something on him as well there, Josh. I need to dive further into his career. A hell of a resume. He was in with some of the who's who in the sport. I know Charles Bud freaking Taylor. So no, that's awesome right there. That is super awesome. I'm gonna look into some further stuff and probably put something together there, Josh. I didn't know that was a relative of yours. That's pretty awesome right there. I have this picture there in mind. I know what he looks like there. And man, hell of a fighter. I know he had what? Did he have 200 fights? Close to it, maybe somewhere over there, or I know he had over 100, right? So, man, he had a ton of fights, for what I recall correctly. But I do need to look further into Bud Taylor, and I know he was in with some pretty amazing fighters as well. So that's good stuff. Didn't know that, Josh. Interesting there, buddy. Thanks for sharing. Joshua mentions 1890 wrestlings were more like MMA today. Yes, indeed. Rough and tumble stuff there. It wasn't for the faint of heart, for sure. And they really sold those things, even when they were doing some of the other style of wrestling back then. That stuff was sold in a different type of way. Lou Ambers took the title from Henry Armstrong, but Lou Jenkins KO'd Ambers. Wow, that's big time right there. Dan saying something right there. Lou Jenkins was able to get Lou out of there. That's crazy. Interesting. Two Lou's, right? two different spellings of lose, but they are two different Lou's, right? Lou with the Lou and Lou with the LEW. Interesting. Nardico, only man to knock down Lamada. Okay. I think I do recall that. That's crazy. And Lamada was in with some dogs, of course, as we know. Even Sugar Ray Robinson couldn't put him down. You even think about the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Robinson did not put him down. That's crazy right there. So I think they did feature that in the Raging Bull movie as well, or something to that tune, right? Not mistaken. Joshua mentions Wild Bill's wrestling fights were real. Certainly. Crazy. Bud Taylor, one of the all-time greats, trained by Jack Blackburn. Jack Blackburn, another one who could be in the Hall of Fame as a fighter in addition to his work as a trainer. So just think about that. That's pretty amazing. So trained by Jack Blackburn. Man, Jack Blackburn, he had a lot of good fighters under his resume for sure. Sammy Mandel, of course, former champion. Joe Louis, former champion, world champion. We're talking, folks. So that's crazy. Graceland Cemetery. Okay, Graceland Cemetery. So that's where Fitz is. Graceland. Chicago, Cook County, Illinois. Or is that Barney? Mike had bad luck being in the era of Holmes and Tyson. Oh, yes. So Mike Weaver there for sure. Dan mentions Mac Fossil was 35-0, 35 KOs. Then Quarry KO'd him. Okay. Then Ali KO'd him. He decided to quit. Good move, smart. Hey, seeing how many end up. No, that is saying something. I mean, those are two top tier fighters right there. You get knocked up by them. Yeah, Quarry. Yeah, super tough fighter right there. And he unfortunately, had too many fights and took too much damage. And I think he died at 50. Just think of that. So young. And he took a lot of damage. So sometimes, knowing when to hang them up, having the people in your corner to help you know when to hang them up is a plus side there. So, yeah, you can't knock them and blame them for that for sure. Josh says many fights in the 20s ranked number 5 at bantamweight. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I was going to throw some names out there, but I would probably jack some of them up in terms of some of the competition. I just know of Charles Bud Taylor being, one of the top tier fighters, excuse me, of that era in the history of the sport. So that's pretty amazing that, he's from your family lineage there, Josh Taylor. So salute to that for sure. Charles Bud freaking Taylor right there, one of the great. Charles Bud Taylor. I had to look up some additional things just to kind of refresh myself on him. I haven't looked into him in a good little bit right there, but man, I do know of him for sure. Jenkins had otherworld power. Yeah, some people just have it. I saw a good little video on YouTube. I can't remember who it was. They were explaining, kind of how some people have power that is natural. You're kind of just born with it. And then you have some that is kind of manufactured in terms of you're taught certain things, skill set, techniques and then you ultimately end up able to find that power in a way just through that technique. But for some, think of the likes of George Foreman, for instance, someone who was used there. It's just natural, And I imagine that with Lou Jenkins, just natural. It's just there. Bob Fitzsimmons is just there, The power is just there, regardless of what he was taught. The power was just there. That happens. Josh says, I also have a book on him as well. Okay. Cool. I had to look that up right there. So there's a book on him. Okay. I need to look that up for sure. Josh, never got me down, Ray. Yeah, I remember that. Never got me down. Hey, Dan mentions Weaver knocked the hell out of Holmes. Quick stop it, saved Holmes for possible loss. Holmes first title defense. Never gave Weaver a rematch. Tyson was 10 years later, and he never fought Weaver, who was great. Oh, yes, indeed. I remember Weaver and who's the guy? Dokes. That's I know that's a big one there. Thinking about it, Weaver and Dokes. Weaver KO'd John Tate. Oh, yeah. Then KO'd Gary Katsia. Oh, yes. The South African. He was good. He passed away recently, not too long ago, at least within the last year or two, right? Or something like that. Maybe within the last 2 years or something like that. Katsia, I was going to include him in a poll here recently. I figured some wouldn't know of him. Well, some of the newer fans probably wouldn't, but of course, I think if you're attuned to the history to a certain degree, you would know it. And he's a damn good fighter. for sure. Damn good heavyweight there. So yeah, that's big time there, Dan. Thanks for sharing there for sure. Salute to everyone here in the mix again. We are here. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans who are here and in the mix. And salute to all the Marines out there who celebrate the Marine Corps birthday yesterday on the 10th. But we're here talking boxing history, some of the great fighters who served in the military, etc. So thank you all for being here. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe if you haven't. Turn on those notifications. We'd appreciate it very much. We'd very much appreciate it. You turn on those notifications here. Oh, I have someone else. I didn't include him in the thumbnail, but the great Tommy Loughran. You know, he spent some time served there in the military. So you got to give a shout out to Tommy Loughran. He is one of the best that the sport has seen. One of the great light heavyweights in the sport. Maybe the greatest light heavyweight, certainly in the running there. Look at that record. 90 wins, 25 losses, 10 draws, 44 no decisions. And you factor in those no decisions, likely going to be over 100 and something wins. Over 100 right there. Tommy Loughran, one of the greats in the sport. Light heavyweight champion of the world there. Matter of fact, I was just talking about James J. Braddock here last week, and he is someone that faced Tommy Loughran. And Tommy Loughran, of course, beat James J. Braddock. But hey, it's a learning lesson, especially when you can step in a ring with a fighter of that caliber. That is a learning lesson, no doubt about it. Josh Taylor mentioned Pancho Villa. What is your opinion on him? Pancho Villa, one of the great, flyweight? He was flyweight, right? Because he was there with Jimmy Wow. As a matter of fact, he stopped Jimmy Wow. Terrence Lee was the first to beat Jimmy Wow. I don't think he stopped him. So it was actually Pancho who stopped Jimmy Wow there. That's pretty crazy. Excuse me. Pancho Villa, hell of a fighter. Excuse me. But Pancho, he was a hell of a fighter, racked up a ton of wins before an untimely fate. He died at a young age as well. I can't remember how old he was, maybe 25 or somewhere around there. When he was getting a procedure done, anesthesia took out some boxers back then, unfortunately, similar to Tiger Flowers and Harry Greb. But Pancho Villa, the first to defeat Jimmy Wow. And Jimmy Wow is, for me, the greatest Welsh fighter. Hey, when you think about the greatest British fighters in general, then, hey, of course, Jimmy Wow, he should be thrown in the mix there. For me, I'd put him up there. He may be my number one, I have to think about it, but he's the greatest Welsh fighter for me. And it took someone like, of course, Pancho Villa, a tough, rugged fighter there. Pancho, a young guy. Give me 1 second to let my dog out, of course, who seems to be itching to leave my presence. 1 sec. All right. Back in the mix here. But anyway, so, I'm a fan of Pancho Villa. I wanted to do something on him. As a matter of fact, there's a video of Jimmy Wild on the channel. It's one of the older videos, and it speaks to his career then leading up to that Pancho Villa fight. Yeah, Pancho Villa, just a tough fighter, man, who had an unfortunate demise, as mentioned, but he caught Jimmy at the right time, the right type of style right there. And that footage is out there, folks. If you haven't seen that fight, that contest is out there. And you can see them putting that work. I think that amount of pressure that he was putting on Jimmy Wild, then the pace or whatever, then he ended up catching Jimmy. And, hey, it was lights out. Can't do anything about that right there, but a hell of a fighter right there. One of the greatest Filipino fighters in the sport's history. He's going to rank amongst the greatest for sure. Him, Seferino Garcia, Manny Pacquiao here of modern times is going to rank amongst the greatest just in history when you think about the Filipino fighters. Joshua mentioned we have Loughran versus Walker and others. Oh, yes, no doubt about it. So that's the great thing about Harry Greb when you think about the fact that, hey, we don't have any footage of Harry Greb, but we have footage of all of these others from Mickey Walker to Tommy Loughran. We have Tommy Gibbons footage. We have Mike Gibbons footage. We have footage of everyone, or a lot of people, basically. And Harry Greb was generally in there with him. And that's saying something as far as just the level and caliber of Harry Greb we do have footage of a lot of these fighters that he was in with, and that goes to show you at least how they operated, and you can think to yourself, oh wow, and Harry Grant was able to be in with them. We have footage of Gene Tunney, you know what I'm saying? We seen what Tunney was like in there with Jack Gypsy, big time puncher, and just think about Harry Grant being in with the likes of these individuals. So that tells you that Harry Grant, something special to deal with right there for sure. Something special in the 7th round. So 7th round, that knockout there, Pancho Villa. Good stuff. Good stuff there, Joshua. We never saw Villa become a great fighter since he died shortly, and he won the title after he won the title, sadly. Yeah. So 23. Okay, he was 23 years of age. Yeah, I knew it was fairly young. Yeah, that's amazing. And he had already racked up a crazy amount of fights. Close to 100 fights, if not over 100. I'm trying to remember here off top, but I know he had a crazy amount of fights already, even at that age. Isn't that like, just think about that. This dude had almost 100 fights, and he was 23 years of age. He might have been at 100, but he was close to it. I know that. And died, due to getting a procedure done. And it was tough, dangerous with anesthesia. I guess it's still a dangerous thing. But that being said, back then, so unfortunate. Joshua mentions Jimmy had a segment about being up there with Armstrong or Greb, not just Welsh. Okay. Jimmy has an argument. Sorry, being up there. Oh yes. Oh yeah. No. I think you're right. I think you're right there, Joshua. Some don't throw him in there, but Jimmy Wild, man, just rating up on Jimmy Wild, man, it's pretty crazy. He probably had more fights than what we will ever know. I read some stuff suggesting he could have had in the neighborhood of 800 fights. Just think about that. You look at his official record, of course, you're not going to see that. But there are a lot of fighters, though, who, if you look at their official records or what's captured and recorded, they certainly fought well beyond that, more than that, some stuff that we won't know about it, unsanctioned stuff. It's all about the power of the dollar. So there were fights happening, trust me, that aren't recorded and were never documented. But Jimmy Wild, he was fighting at like circus type events, these crazy type events, because he was a big punching, smaller individual. They would just throw him in there, and he would be outweighed pretty much in the majority of his fights, or a great deal of them. He would be outweighed. And there were times when Jimmy Wild was under 100 pounds fighting individuals who were over 100 pounds, who were heavier than him, and he was still able to knock these individuals out. Just think of that nature. That tells you the level of his power. But yeah, I've seen estimates of around 800 fights for Jimmy Wild. So just think about that, folks. You can't even fathom it. It doesn't even calculate when you think about a modern boxer right there. So it's hard to even believe, I'd imagine, for some, just given the outrageous thought of that number, 800 bouts. But hey, it's not out of question. That doesn't mean that all of these were long bouts. Could have been 4-rounders. John L. Sullivan, it's estimated he had 500 or more bouts, and he did a lot of 4-rounders, for instance. And he traveled around the country fighting just individuals in general. So just think about it from that perspective. And just think about what that would have meant back then compared to now. Of course, everything is different. I'm not saying they're the same, but just think about that. Just imagine the world heavyweight champion coming to your town and you being able to see the world heavyweight champion take on anyone. It doesn't have to be the greatest boxer. It doesn't have to be the highest level of competition, but you being able to see the world heavyweight champion take on someone in your town in a 4-rounder. Wouldn't you take that? If you're from a town of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, whatever it may be, wouldn't you take that, an opportunity to be able to see that, the world heavyweight champion coming to your town for a 4-rounder? I mean, I take that. I think that's pretty awesome back then. But of course, the dynamics and everything are very much vastly different now. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that these guys were in that level or in that amount of fights just over the course of their career. Just thinking about the stuff that was it even accounted for. And also, when you think about the likes of those fighting, especially when you think about the pre-1900s, those in the late 1800s and such, the amount of exhibitions that they did, and before Marquess of Queensberry rules became the absolute standard, them having exhibitions of glove competitions, they were essentially disguised as exhibitions, but they were legitimate fights. They were legitimate fights that were actually taking place. Of course, they weren't documented as such, and that's the difference between sites like, so BoxRec, you have Cyber Boxing Zone out there. A big difference between the two, BoxRec, and it's doing a lot of updating and stuff. They have a lot of new things there. They capture a lot of the records. They even include the no decision fights. So you have to look at it a certain way or calculate it a certain way to understand the total records. I did a video on that. But that being said, but Cyber Boxing Zone, it's a site out there, a little bit lesser known. You have to be into the history to know of it. But they include all of this stuff tied to like exhibitions and things that were taking place. Like you look at James J. Corbett, he had maybe like 22 official fights, 22 to 24 official fights. But if you look at the amount of exhibitions, it's probably like double of what he had in official fights. And all of those exhibitions weren't necessarily exhibitions in the sense of what we know them from a technical standpoint. And I thought that they did a good job of portraying how kind of some of those operations were in the movie on Jim Corbett, Gentleman Jim, which I thought was a damn good movie. I forget who was playing him. Errol Flynn, maybe. Could be wrong, but I think it might have been Errol Flynn playing him. But they show you, like, there were a lot of clubs out there, private clubs. So trust me, there were boxing matches happening in these private clubs that the world would never know of. And it would be so amazing if we were able to go back and just be a fly on the wall. You know what I'm saying? But that's a tangent right there. Calzaghe, greatest Welsh, in my opinion. Good stuff there, Dan. No, he held in high regards. I know a lot of people. You're not alone there, Dan. Joe Calzaghe. Quick on the punch right there. Light on his feet. Yeah, he threw a lot of punches. So, yeah, he's definitely one. He's definitely one that ranks up there. And you're not alone there, Dan. I think I know Random McKissick Thoughts holds Joe in high regards as well. Joshua mentions Jimmy's also at the end of the road also. Yes, ton of fights there. So that is true right there, Joshua, what you mentioned. That wasn't like a fresh and springy Jimmy Wow that Pancho Villa fought. Excuse me, that was a fully battle-tested Jimmy Wow who had been in the game for a good bit and who had been through some wars, of course. This wasn't Jimmy Wow in his prime, I guess you can say. So that should be noted for sure. Josh mentions tooth extraction. Okay, that's what it was for Pancho Villa there, tooth extraction. Just think about that. A tooth extraction turning into your death. Unfortunate. The ghost with the hammer in his hand. Jimmy Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Joshua mentions Jack Dempsey had well more than 60 fights he had on his record. No doubt. Hey, no doubt. No doubt. I believe it for sure. Even he was doing some of those exhibitions there later on. And, hey, they were going at it, real deal type stuff. He was speculating or planning to do a comeback. He was planning to do a comeback well after that last Tunney fight, but it never materialized in terms of him ultimately coming back. But he was doing exhibitions, things of that nature. As a matter of fact, what a lot of people hold Harry Greb in regards to him, exhibition, or at least they were training. That was more so sparring, not an exhibition. But Harry Greb gave him some pretty good work there from a sparring perspective. And that's why a lot of people, they know, Harry Greb, he could have upset the apple cart there against Jack Dempsey from a sparring, or if they were to have fought in an official fight. Joshua mentioned Dempsey would come to town and fight the local tough guys pre-title run. Oh, yeah. That's how he got his start. That's certainly how Dempsey got his start right there in general. He just even thinking about back when he was at a younger age, just going around, hey, you take on whoever, you know. All of these fights weren't accounted for and all that stuff, but a lot of work was put in. Joshua mentioned the story of Jack Dempsey knocking out a guy in one round. but he only got $1. And Dipsy says, "What gives? The fight was for 4. You KO him in 1, but if you fight his brother, you can collect the rest." That's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy right there. I can see that type of stuff happening right there. It just wasn't regulated. You know what I'm saying? This was just stuff that was happening. So just think about that. These were just happening. Joshua mentions Corbett was busy in the unofficial fights. No doubt about it. Oh, yeah. So Errol Flynn there. Okay, good stuff there, Joshua. You confirmed such. Errol Flynn. So he played Corbett in that. But that just gives you an example of things. Salute to everyone here in the mix. Everyone who has dropped by, who showed some love. We were here talking about some of the great fighters to have put on the military or don the military uniform, regardless of which unit or whatever. Terry Downs. Now, of course, I have a video on the channel of fighting Marines. I need to do a part 2. I just called it Top 8 Fighting Marines, something to that tune. Not necessarily ranking them, though you could argue it came out as such in some capacity. But there are other Marines out there that do need to be highlighted. But Terry Downs, what is it, Pennington, or he's from, where is that British spot? I think it's Paddington, the Paddington Express there. Terry Downs. Of course, he fought Paul Pender, Sugar Ray Robinson. Paul Pender there, guy in there with Sugar Ray Robinson. Paul Pender, he's from, he was part of the Brookline Fire Department. Another fighting Marine out there who became world champion at middleweight. Excuse me. And I think his last fight might have been against Terry Downs. But he beat Sugar Ray Robinson. There's the middleweight version, that is. So he's another one that is noted there that I wanted to share, of course. And this is tying in some of those Marines that are in the mix. And, of course, the fighting Marine, Gene Tunney there. You see his 65 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. This is sort of like the Boxrec record, but you take that, or you add in those no decisions, it's really 80 plus wins essentially. And Gene Tunney, the only loss, of course, to none other than the Pittsburgh Windmill himself, Harry Greb. But just think about that. Gene Tunney, most will know him of heavyweight fame because that's where he won his world title. Interestingly, a lot of people might think that he was the world light heavyweight title, though he ranks as one of the greatest light heavyweights in boxing history. But he was the American light heavyweight champion. Actually never won that world light heavyweight title. Not that he couldn't have. But that being said, known for heavyweight fame, one of the greatest light heavyweights, of course, one of the greatest heavyweights, one of the great just boxers, generalists, one of the pure technicians of the sport. I was having a chat about him here a couple of days ago. As a matter of fact, love the way he brought up that jab. He was talking about the master of the up jab. He kept those hands kind of low, so he would bring that jab up. Gave plenty people problems there. Plenty. So Dan mentions that Dempsey fought 500 exhibitions after retirement till age 51, mostly journeyman, but some good. King Levinsky, while he was a good contender. Okay, good stuff there. King Levinsky. Working on something on King Levinsky, folks. I've mentioned that before. Working on something on Kingfish Levinsky, Chicago's own right there. Good stuff there, Dan. But yeah, he was in the mix there. Polino Uskadun, Max Beer. He was working with those guys. So Dempsey was very much active. Josh Taylor mentioned George Dixon was definitely a beast considering his weight at the time. No doubt about it. Canada's own George Dixon, featherweight champion. That's the first the first black champion in boxing? I think that's what it is. Yeah, just in boxing in general. It may be in sports, but there was this other guy who was a horse jockey. I can't remember if he was first, but Dixon certainly ranks amongst the first, if not the first, just in general. But George Dixon, little chocolate right there. I've long wanted to do something on him. We have footage of George Dixon. That's the amazing thing. We're talking about fighters who applied their trade in the 1800s. Some there crossed it over into the 1900s, of course. And we have footage of these individuals, which is pretty amazing just thinking about it. So we have some footage out there of George Dixon. We have him in there with Chester Leon, I believe it is. And hey, one of the all-time greats in the sport, one of the all-time great contributors to the sport. It is said that he came up with shadowboxing, or he was the first to make shadowboxing a widely known thing, And of course, we see that's a regular part of training and the routines that people do today. I can do a little bit of that here in my chair, but just think about the contributions that George Dixon made as far as the sport just as a whole, right there. Out of Canada, they've had some great fighters, some of the greatest fighters in history. Arguably the greatest fighter in history is from Canada. You think about Sam Langford, George Byers. As a matter of fact, George Budge Byers. If you're here tomorrow, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be doing a live. We're going to be discussing the career of George Budge Byers. Now, Byers, he is, and I'll go ahead and show you this since I have it here. He has a resume that most probably didn't know, but a hell of a resume just from an overall perspective. He was a hell of a fighter, fighting Dick Moore, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, Sandy Ferguson, George Gardner, Jack Bonner, Jack Twin Sullivan, Frank Chow. And what you will notice there, if you know that we're talking about weights far beyond what he started at. He's noted to be a middleweight realistically, but of course, he's a guy who fought at heavyweight as well, or fought heavyweights, and it's just a regular and routine part of things. So I'll share some of the things that I know of him. There is a video on the channel if you want to get a early look and view of George Budge Byers. I'll share it, matter of fact, after this stream. But George Budge Byers, former colored world middleweight champion, one of the greatest the sport has seen. Hell of a fighter right there. I'll share that video. If you haven't checked it out on the channel, maybe some of you are newer, you want to check it out because he goes under the radar. He didn't have a ton of fights as far as those recorded fights. I think it amounts to around 40-ish overall, but with what he was able to do with those fights, and there was stuff that happened outside of the ring or beyond the official fight apparatus, as we've been noting here. So trust me, he was as good as advertised, probably even better there. So wanted to note that for sure. Josh says Dipsy's playing for a comeback, but yep, didn't happen. Levinsky about gave Dipsy other time. Oh yeah, no doubt about it there. So working on something on Kingfish Levinsky, baby. That made me think of battling Levinsky as well. Hell of a fighter. Had some wars with Jack Dillon. Let's see. He ended Robinson's 5-title run at middleweight for good. Oh yes. Yes, indeed. There. Greek. He was the American light heavyweight title. George Carpentier held it, the Nsiki, etc. Oh yes, right. In relation to Gene Tunney there. So Gene Tunney never held the world heavyweight title or world light heavyweight title, which is crazy, right? When you think about it. When you think about him, because if you know of his career and you associated him with a light heavyweight world, he never held that title, which is crazy. First black champion there, George Dixon. Good stuff there, Joshua. Benham, I believe. Okay. Benham. So Benham, I think he won a featherweight title as well. So Benham weight to featherweight was a jump there prior to these in-between weights, some of the in-between weights we have now. But 1800s Dixon world champion. No, yes, indeed there. Weights back then was a suggestion, LOL. No doubt about it. You look at some of these, like even just thinking about, like I said, freaking just why I have so much respect for Jimmy Wow. Like I said, there were some fights. You can go look it up yourself, folks. He was like 90 pounds, 90 or 90 something pounds. I think one of his lowest that I know that was recorded there, I believe he was around 90, like 90 pounds. Fighting a guy who was like 100 and something. I forget how big he was. But Jimmy Wow, he was like 90 something pounds, just lighting it up, putting that work on some people. So this is some crazy stuff, man. Boxing is insane sport, very insane back then. Certainly. You just think about now, it's tough, grueling, and all that stuff. But back then, it was unreal. It was, yeah. You would question the legality of it with some of that stuff that was taking place back in the day. To be honest with you, from a legal perspective, it would not be legal today. I can tell you that. Mysterious Billy Smith, Canadian. Oh yes, multi-time world welterweight champion. I think he won it twice. Was it twice? Twice or three times? I think it was twice. Mysterious Billy Smith, another one who was in with some of the best to ever do it right there. Don't let his record fool you, because he was a very erratic individual. Had 11 plus disqualification losses. Very erratic. When I say erratic, he's an interesting character right there. I did a video on him recently. That was a shorter video, but I do want to dive even further into those DQ losses. You can see that he would just sometimes lose his head right there, but damn good boxer. So don't let his record fool you, because he's close to 500, as a matter of fact. But just think about the amount of times he was just disqualified and probably didn't show up in shape, all that type stuff. But he is one of those who, from a backstory perspective, just a very interesting individual to get into the mind of an individual from that particular time frame. Just think about it. It's insane, you know. It's insane to get in the mind of an individual like Mysterious Billy Smith. Have a little bit on the channel there on him, but I want to do more on him. Matter of fact, I was going to work on a book on him. I don't know if I shared it before. I had started the process of kind of getting somewhat of the structure down, but maybe it's something, you know, I can do in the future there, but it requires a lot. Of course, he's Canadian, as Dan mentioned there. I'm here in the US, certainly would benefit to being Canada and kind of see some of these spots. And of course, I have been to Canada on a number of occasions, but that being said, it'll take a good deal of work. So we'll see. Who knows what the future holds. Original George Godfrey from Canada. Yeah, another one right there from the Bog. As a matter of fact, I was mentioning George Budge Byers' cousin, George Godfrey right there. As a matter of fact, I'd argue, and based on what I've researched, the reason George Budge Byers got into boxing is because of the original George Old Chocolate Godfrey right there. Just think about that. They came from this small, poor little area in Canada called the Bog. It's basically like a slum, and they made it out of there. And ironically, of course, we know Byers, he was taught a lot of stuff by George, his cousin. George Byers taught a lot of stuff to none other than Sam Langford. Just think about how some of these lines cross. Amazing. It's insane. We'll talk about it tomorrow, though. I want you there. We're going to talk about George Budge Byers. Joshua said, had Lewis and Robinson fought in the 1800s and both were world champs, regardless of color, bar, etc. It would not be uncommon if they fought each other. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And we would have really seen that pound for pound put to the test. You know what I'm saying? And I referenced that for sort of the notion of the story of the pound for pound coming about. Those thinking of, hey, what would it be like if Joe Louis fought Sugar Ray Robinson? Hey, we would have seen that put to the test right there. And man, that's an interesting one. Maybe I should do a poll about that, though some people might view it as blasphemous, but it wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility had it been around this time frame. Like you said, you could argue even in that time frame, just depending on, you know, certain situations, you know, but that being said, it likely wouldn't have happened. But back then, yeah, interesting. So I might put that poll out here, Joshua, there tonight. Just think, who would win if they fought at heavyweight? You know, if they fought at heavyweight. Hey, we'll see what people say. I'm sure people are going to pick Lewis. I'd imagine he's going to win the thing, but it would be interesting. Not out of the realm of possibility there. Joshua headed to bed. Salute, my friends. Pugilism forever. Amen. Hey, appreciate you there, Joshua. Hey, about to get out of here myself there. Joshua, appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. Shout out to my man Wyatt, who likes to box. I love Joey Maxim. He gets way too much hate, bro. Oh, Joey Maxim, hell of a fighter right there. I was just thinking about that. Him, as a matter of fact, when I was just saying, at heavyweight for Sugar Ray Robinson versus Joe Louis because, of course, we know that Robinson fought Maxim, but Maxim was a hell of a fighter, a very tough fighter with a tough career, as a matter of fact. You look at his resume, very tough resume, and he fought a who's who in the sport in itself right there, and he had to overcome. A lot of people don't mention him when you think about the greatest light heavyweights that the sport has seen, but he should be in the mix there. You probably don't associate him with being the greatest boxer or whatnot. You might not associate him with the greatest power or whatever, but hey, he was an overcomer right there. And hey, a hell of a fighter without a doubt there, Wyatt. Thanks for showing love. Hey, maybe have to do a show on Joey Maxim, one of the greats to ever have laced him up. A hell of a fighter there for sure. Jimmy was wild. LOL. Yes, he was. Indeed, he was there. Wyatt, appreciate you there, Wyatt. Got to check you out. I don't know if you have stuff on your channel there, Wyatt. I'm going to check it out there, but that's good stuff right there. But that's a good one. He was pretty wild. Cheers there to you, Josh. Dan mentioned first welterweight champion, Billy Smith. Oh, yes. Mysterious Billy Smith. Wyatt mentions, I like Joey Maxim, but he gets too much hate, bro. Yeah, I wouldn't see why. He's a damn good boxer, damn good contributor to the sport, which is crazy. I think it had to do with Robinson fight. Joey knew the heat and let Robinson tire himself out. Hey, yeah, it could be that. It could be that it's viewed that Robinson was going to win that fight on the cards or whatever, but ultimately it didn't transpire. And that was a 15-rounder, right? And just imagine a 45-rounder, you know what I'm saying? Which wasn't out of the realm of possibility 50 years prior. A 45-rounder, yeah, it probably wouldn't have happened, for Robinson if it had been a 45-rounder, you know what I'm saying? But that's not crazy to think about it, or to think a 45-rounder, if that would have been, 50 years prior or something like that. So yeah, TFB, cheers there to you, TFB. 97 says, big up, 80 says, hey, big up to you there. I appreciate you there, buddy. Thanks for dropping in there. Imagine, getting late there, but I thank you for dropping by. We're talking some of the great military boxers here, though there's been an offspring of a lot of conversations, a lot of good conversations on just historic stuff in general. But man, I appreciate you there, buddy. I know you made some suggestions. We're going to do those videos. I'm going to get with Random. We're going to talk about some of those coming up here. Going to set some stuff on the schedule. I appreciate you always dropping by, showing some love, and dropping comments and suggestions there. Hey, I'm all for it there, buddy. Joshua says Robbins coming in at middleweight, though. Yeah, hey, he would have to. TFV, Lewis Robinson ducked Archie Moore in the 50s. That would have been an interesting one right there. Archie freaking Moore, who I hold in high regards. I'd say the greatest light heavyweight, but there's so many great light heavyweights out there, man. That's so tough. But I hold him in that regard, man. But it's like razor thin, and I think there's so many up there that are interchangeable when you're talking about the light heavyweight ranks. Edric Charles could be there. Tommy Loughran. Of course, we mentioned Gene Tunney. He could be there in the mix. Freaking, he's not going to be credited with being the greatest one I hold in high regard. Joe Kowinski. He, I think he would have been a hell of a light heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, depending on the timing. Had timing been different, he would have been light heavyweight champion in my eyes. Man, so many great light heavyweights have graced us over the years. Maxim, very underrated there by Dan. Yes, sir. Yes, I do. Fought Edric for a heavyweight championship. Hey, Edric Charles, another one. Very much underrated. But yeah, Joey Maxim, hey, I don't see why people would hate on Joey. Joey was a beast out there doing his thing. TFB says Langford Robinson at middleweight would have been a fantastic fight. Oh yeah. You had some technicality thrown into the mix there. Power, speed. I'd give Robinson the speed edge, power to Sam Langford. Man, that would have been a hell of a fight there at middleweight. Maybe one worth a poll right there. I'll credit you TFB. That's one worth the poll as well. Langford versus Robinson. Might have to do that. Cheers to my man, Boz, Cobra Boz. Hey, appreciate you dropping by there, bro. Boxing Chit. We're going to be back in the mix here soon. We didn't do one this past week. We did one a week prior. But my man, Boz Cobra in the mix as well there. Appreciate you dropping by, buddy. I had dropped by your live stream from yesterday. Good stuff there, Boz. Keep it up. Follow him, folks. If you don't know, go subscribe to Boz. And Boz is boxing. As a matter of fact, look that up too. Maxim first to beat Floyd Patterson. Joey Maxim first to beat Floyd Patterson. Oh, that's the case. Not Ingemar. Joey Maxim was very respectable. Has a very respectable resume. Oh, yes, no doubt about it. Tough fighter. Giuseppe Antonio Bernardellini. Bernardinelli. Got you there, Boz. Hey, bringing out the government names there. I got you there, buddy. Maxim didn't have heat, and he's bigger. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is bigger. You know, that's a lot to deal with for sure. Josh says 50 rounds in heat, but Maxim did not go out like he normally does. He just played the pacing game, and Robinson was dancing around. Hey, can't knock it. Can't knock it. I think it might have been the 13th when Robinson got heat exhausted. Okay, 13th round. So, yeah, just imagine if it would have been even longer, you know. So that's saying something right there. That is saying something. Boz says, hi, Josh Taylor, the only person I recognize here. Hey, appreciate you there, Boz Cobra. Hey, you got to come through there, Boz. Come on through, buddy. Dan mentioned Sugar Ray Robinson never fought one of the Murderers Row, never beat a light heavyweight. Hey, that's handsome. I wanted to see Robinson versus Charlie Burley. I think that would have been a hell of a fight right there. I know some people note that Charlie Burley couldn't sell or whatever it may be. That's a fight that should have happened right there. Charlie freaking Burley. Got a video on the channel. Go check it out if you haven't, folks. Wyatt says, I think Tony Canzoneri could have went in middleweight and fight Robinson, but that is a wild thought. Hey, not out of the realm of possibility. Tony Canzoneri, damn good fighter right there. Damn good fighter. One of the best ever. Surely one of the top 10 to 15 boxers in the history of the sport. And he accomplished so much as a teenager that, you know, that is beyond the realm of what you see these days, essentially. Tony Canzoneri, certainly one of the great. And I loved his brutish sort of moxie and style to him, you know. He wasn't afraid to hold his hands out and whip those things in there. He was a beast, absolute freaking beast there. Excuse me. Dan says, what's up there to your Boz? Salute there to you, everyone. But no, this has been great. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it's great to be back in the mix there for sure there, Boz. But man, this has been great. We're talking some of the great fighters in the history of the military, though there are plenty more. You really can't do a single show on it, of course. I'll finish with, of course, Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. We know his contributions to the sport. We know his contributions to the military. And, hey, he probably could have been, or there's probably more that could have been done for him from a financial perspective to ensure he didn't end up in the financial situation he ended up in on account of taxes, given what he contributed to the military with those exhibitions, etc., that he was doing. But Joe Louis, one of the greatest when you think about the military vets serving in the Army. We have video out there. As a matter of fact, when you think about military personnel, where we have a lot of footage on them from those eras way back then, of course, Joe Louis is one of those, man. Great contributor to the military through him serving, financially donating those purses, etc. I mean, what more can you say? The Brown Bomber, Joe freaking Louis, one of the best. Cheers to Rasclot 222. Appreciate you, Rasclot, dropping by. Salute there to you. Hey, folks, go check out Rasclot 222 there. Hey, I love when Rasclot goes live, keeps it real. Hey, no corner cutting, no BS. Rasclot just keeps it real. Always showing love. Appreciate you there, Rasclot. Hey, I'm going to be checking for it. You got to go live there, Rasclot. I'm trying to drop in there, my man. So, folks, if you're in here right now, go subscribe to Rasclot 222. He be putting in that work. As you can see him. You can see him in his picture right there. He puts in that work for sure. But no, appreciate you dropping by, Rasclot. Good to have you in the mix there, buddy. Yeah, hey, we're here towards the tail end of things. I said I was going to go for an hour, but a little bit over hour, 20 minutes. Joshua says, Lewis is one of all-time great heavyweight champions, no doubt about it. If you have him number one, I am not mad at you. because Joe Louis, absolute monster there. When you think about the sport, hey, the Bum of the Month Club can line you up. Boz mentioned Benny Leonard, Freddie Welsh, Lou Embers, great lightweights, no doubt about it. All of them. Freddie Welsh, the Welsh Wizard. Matter of fact, we have some video out there of him with Packy McFarland. Hey, if you haven't checked out the Packy McFarland video on the channel, it's an hour, of course, but there's some footage in there. I put a little bit in there. I don't want to go over the board because YouTube will probably flag it or something. But there's a little bit of footage in there, but you can look out there. Some other channels have it. Freddie Welsh taking on Packy McFarland. Just think about that. They fought 3 times there. So amazing stuff right there. Benny Leonard, arguably the greatest light heavyweight in boxing history. If you have him number 1, like I said about Lewis, I'm not mad at you. Absolute freaking beast right there. Just his distance and timing, the way he operated, absolute beast. And we got footage, of course, right there of Benny Leonard. Of course, him in there with Lou Tindler, which is the only footage of Lou Tindler that is out there. Another Lou in the mix. Wyatt says, dude, someone at my gym was like saying Lewis was a bum and said he was the N-word. So I sparred the guy and gave him a bloody nose. Good. Shout out to you, Wyatt. Good. Yeah, he's an idiot, whoever that was there. Wyatt, an absolute idiot, because you look at, you don't even have to take my word for it. You don't even have to take the next person's word for it. You don't have to take anyone's in this chat or thread's word for it. You don't even have to take someone you may know directly's word for it. I mean, just look at the word of some of those that have been great in documenting this great sport of boxing and the history of it. And if you're the outlier, then, hey, maybe it's something wrong with you right there being the outlier. But good stuff there, Wyatt. For sure. Ras Glot in the mix there. For sure. Joshua said, I think even without the taxes, Lewis would have gone broke. He was just spending money. I have no doubt that he was spending it like he owned it. He did not have the biz mind of say a Jack Johnson, Jack Gypsy, or Tunney. No, I don't doubt that he was on spending sprees, but that in particular, craziness. But you're right. I'm sure he was spending it, shelling it out. And maybe he had some kind of, who knows, some stuff. Maybe he probably deserved more than what he was actually getting through management. I don't know. Maybe that's a whole nother story right there. Appreciate you as well, Rasclot. Be sure to check him out, folks. As mentioned, bye. Give it chewing love. I'm gonna rewind when it's over. It says, "Oh yeah, all good there, Rasclot. All good. Hey, we're gonna be back in a minute. Gonna be here tomorrow. We're gonna be talking George Budge Byers. But in the meantime, of course, folks, I've enjoyed this with all of you. We always enjoy the great dialogue. All the new people that came in, showing some love and all that stuff. Man, I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone. Hey, come back. Join us tomorrow. We're going to talk George Budge Byers, one of the greats that the sport has seen, as I've mentioned, middleweight, former colored world middleweight champion, and someone who doesn't get too much recognition. Canadian, doing his thing. Wyatt mentioned, have you tried Archie Moore's sweet and sour sauce? No, I haven't tried that. I didn't know that was out there. I'm going to have to check that out there. I'll check it out, even for my novelty's sake. I'm going to have to check it out there, Wyatt. I know Joe Louis had a whiskey I was trying to get, so I don't think it's in production anymore, but I was reaching out to these places trying to get some, and it couldn't be shipped out of states because there's not any near me specifically, but there was a Joe Louis whiskey I know that was out there, which would have been dope. Money-wise, Joe Louis, even Rocky Marciano was getting paid like Jack Gypsy. That type of person would not come back until Ali. Very interesting there. Very interesting there, Greg. Joshua going to have to look into that for sure. That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, was not getting paid. Oh, I thought you said it was. Oh, yeah, okay. Was not getting paid. Okay, I can see that not happening. Yeah. Some of it was, coming in the aftermath of the Great Depression and all of that stuff. And then with Dipsy, I know I was reading some stuff, especially with the Dipsy Gibbons fight, how some of the big money purses hadn't delivered in the way that some expected. So I'm sure there was a little rocky portion there in the mix for sure. But I don't see Rasclot in the chat. I know you mentioned that before there, Boz. I don't know what the heck. Maybe he's invisible. He's invisible there, Boz. But yeah, but Rasclot, he's in the mix there. So salute to Rasclot. Lewis had a Joe Louis Punch soda. Okay, the interesting stuff. I know a lot of these cats had a number of things they pedal. Yeah, Rasclot says salute to you, Boz. You might have to correct something there. I remember you mentioned that before, but he sees you there, Boz. Maybe you had to click on his profile and correct something for sure. But he's in the mix. I'm sure he didn't block me. No, he sees you. He can see you. Maybe, hey, check, make sure you didn't block him there, Boz. Good stuff there. Oh, I can't see him. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I see both of you. Well, I'm using a streamer. I'm not in the YouTube version. I'm just looking solely through StreamYard. But very interesting there for sure. Hey, but hey, y'all in the mix there. No, I'm with your Rasclot. We need to bring the Joe Louis Futch back. Hey, maybe that's the thing. He has his son is out there. I think he was behind the whiskey, so maybe that's the thing that could come back. Why not? It would be good to have, the good old days of punch soda. But we'll see how it goes. But hey, anyway, hey, thank you everyone who came in the mix here, showed some love. Appreciate it. 86 Boxer here, Joshua, holding it down. Boxing history, hey, will continue to live on. I have some other stuff that I'm working in terms of some videos on some historic fighters and all that stuff. Sometimes it takes some time, but in the meantime, hey, we're going to still dive into the history as best we can live via these live shorts, whatever it may be. But hey, I'll be back in the mix tomorrow, so come drop by, show some love. Appreciate all of you, of course. Appreciate every single one of you. Hey, and let's keep the dialogue going. Gonna post some of these little matchups and all of that stuff as well. So until tomorrow, I'll catch you all.